Hello, everyone. I wanted more time, but these Ascendancies are coming out faster than my videos are, and that's a problem. So this is going to be a little bit half-cooked, but a microwave meal is better than it being frozen. So here we go. There are essentially four archetypes present in this Ascendancy. There is duration-based vol skills, and they go these three: Chaos Reigns, Fever of Corruption, Forbidden Secrets. What Forbidden Secrets does is it makes your vol skills cost 80% less if you wait at least 8 seconds between every use. Then the next one, Fever for Corruption, makes your vol skills cost half. Those will stack, meaning you'll get 10 uses where you'd normally get one. And then Chaos Reigns is going to give +3 level of all vol skills, and optionally some of these duration-based vol builds will also use Depose Order. So that is archetype number one. The other archetype is to go Depose Order into Chaos Reigns, and this is for your hit-based vol skills. They're going to be doing this, so you can think this is your Spark, this is your Fireball. Basically, any vol skill you want to spam. And then you can consider also going Fever of Corruption as well, but that's going to just increase duration and cost. Generally, if you want to use the skill more often in a mapping experience, the reduced soul gain prevention will most likely give you more uptime than the other notable will. You could also go something like Vol Lightning Strike, but the only problem with Vol Lightning Strike is you're going to be playing it on the Templar side, so I would personally advise you to go for spells, because spells are a little bit easier to build on Templar than attacks. You can do attacks, but if we're considering a league start environment, then I probably wouldn't do that. Next, we have Dissolution. So this is not really league start viable. I tried to cook something in Path of Building for you guys for making Dissolution league start viable, and then I ended up giving up on it because it wasn't worth the amount of effort. The short version of why it's not worth the amount of effort is any damage over time skill, even though the duration is reduced to 1 second, is completely ruined. Completely ruins the build. So Bleed will ruin your life. Ignite will ruin your life. What else? Poison and Corrupting Blood. The Corrupting Blood, you just need a corrupted gem. The Bleed, you can arguably use a flask, but the Poison annoyingly requires rolling an Essence of Delirium on your boots, which I don't know how affordable Essences of Deliriums are going to be. Normally they're pretty easy to get because of the way the people rush Essence on the Atlas tree, but now that those nodes are going to be random, I'm not sure that they're going to be that common, and GGG has a history of messing with the prices of Essence between leagues by making small changes to the Essence mechanic that cause changes people aren't expecting. So I personally consider that risky. Lastly, we have Impure Blood plus Hewn Flesh. This is kind of a fourth archetype that's over here, but you're going to combo it with one of the Vol skill archetypes most likely, or at least Glimpse of Chaos, which we'll talk about last. What this one does is it's very synergistic with sacrificing all of your, reserving all your life, so you have a full mana bar and you have lots of energy shield. It's generally how you run this. So people are going to be running this with Ivory Tower in the late game. I imagine this will be a lot of people's second build, and or people will run it as their first build and try to transition into it, which I'm going to open the Path of Building and kind of show how you could potentially do that. So the idea behind everything is that your skills are costing life instead of mana, and you reserve life instead of mana, but the important line is that you have 100% increased life reservation efficiency of skills. What this does is this essentially means that not only are you not using mana, but your life is at double value. So by default, you're going to be able to reserve 4 50% auras instead of 2 50% auras. So you're getting double auras value, and then there's a node on the tree that can give you a little bit more life reservation efficiency, and you can squeeze in another 25%. I'll show you that later. And lastly, we have Glimpse of Chaos. Glimpse of Chaos is probably, I wouldn't necessarily say it's the strongest node on this Ascendancy, because Dissolution is super strong in the late game because it should override Dissolution of the Flesh, but Glints of Chaos gives you 80% increased maximum life and 120% increased maximum energy shield if all of your equipped items are corrupted. And if you're doing something like an Ivory Tower build, you're double dipping on that because you're converting your life into energy shield. And that's going to give you lots of value, and I'll show you that in the build. So here we have, where are you? Here we have the budget version of the Glimpse of Chaos / reserve life build. So what I've done here is this is a template build. It doesn't even have a damage skill. This is just Wave of Conviction and 0 links. It's just going to support. So what the build does is it grabs, first of all, it's going to grab all res on tree. So 12 there, and I think 8. It's grabbing 8 somewhere else. Yeah, 8 over here. So a total of 20%. So that's going to offset half of the negative resistance penalty we'll get for corrupting all of our items. And then we're going to path to some elemental damage nodes along the way. So this is generic. You can really turn this into any skill. This is only a level 66 character. There's plenty of skill points left. You can grab this fire node if you're a fire damage dealer. You can grab any elemental node up here. And you can grab these brand nodes if you want to run this with brands, which it should be pretty strong with brands. The important thing to note here is I have turned Glints of Chaos into a jewel so we can see how much stats we're getting from this. And if you can see this right here, we're getting over 2,000 energy shield from Glints of Chaos. This is a massive boost to our energy shield capacity. You can see that we have over 8,000 energy shield right now. Now you may be wondering, we have no life and we have a lot of energy shield, and we're running pain attunement, but what's the budget like? What's the gear look like? Is this great gear that's allowing us to reach 8,000 energy shield? And the answer is no. So I'm going to hover over our rares really quick. The rings have more, they're going to be the hard part because you're going to need a little bit more elemental resistance than you may be able to perfectly handle on League Start, but it is doable. We have very low life rolls on all of our gear, and life just directly gives us ES, so note that this numbers can be way higher. And then we have very affordable uniques. Crown of the Inward Eye is probably the least affordable unique in this build, and it's not needed to get it running. And it also goes down drastically in price as the league progresses. The important unique here is also the cheapest one, and that is Sprigleaf, or Springleaf. This, since our skills cost mana, this allows us to cast, or our skills no longer cost mana, they cost life. This allows us to cast an infinite number of spells, because this just by itself is going to give us 140 life regen. We can replace this later with any other source of life regen, but just for now, it just gets the build off the ground, and that's the point of this little path of building, is something you could get going into maps. Ghost Writhe. Ghost Writhe is budget Ivory Tower, and it's a very cheap unique. You can see if I take Ghost Writhe off, I have 3,000 energy shield. I've put it on, I have 8,000. Completely busted. So you may be wondering how we are getting all of the chaos damage to not bypass the energy shield, and unfortunately, the best way to do that in this build is to get a coruscating elixir and a brutal restraint that is sacrificed to Balbala. These are normally only one divine, but if for some reason the Legion farmers don't get up and running until, I don't know, like day 2 of League, maybe you're not going to be able to even think about getting this day 1. Maybe day 1 it's like 5 div. In which case, I will say, all you do is you don't click Pain Attunement, and you don't grab the last node. This build should still be perfectly functional. Instead of grabbing this, you're going to grab the Vol skill duration and +3 level of all Vol skill gems, and then you can play a Vol skill. Like, there's ways to get this to work early game. I just wanted to show you, for a very low gear investment, how powerful you can expect this to be. So we're looking at level 66 character with 1 energy shield wheel with 8,000 energy shield, right? And I haven't shown the other selling point of the build. This is all the auras we're supporting. We are currently supporting Herald of Thunder, Vol Discipline, Vitality, Tempest Shield, Purity of Elements, and Zealotry. This is over 200% of, this would be reserving over 200% of our mana if we were a regular build. And they don't have to be these auras. You can replace them with anything you want. Tempest Shield can be replaced by Skitterbots, not Scatterbots. Fall Discipline. I'd probably keep this just because of how strong it's going to be for keeping our energy shield topped off. And yeah, we have Herald of Thunder. Can just be any damage aura you really want it to be. And also, if we get better gear, we don't need to run Purity of Elements, which is just here to completely offset. Between the tree and this aura, we've completely offset the negative of going the negative 66%, or sorry, negative 40% resistance from our Ascendency notable. Also, on top of all that, and I know I'm saying also a lot, but this level 66 is including these points you won't be taking early. For example, I'm speccing this Ascendency by spending 3 passive points. You wouldn't have this. So really this is about a level, what would that be, like a level 57 tree? We're very, everything here is super obtainable, and you should be able to spec all the damage you need. Just grabbing whatever, grabbing one of these clusters depending on your elemental damage type, picking up the fire wheel or the lightning wheel over here, lightning cold wheel, just whatever element you are, go ahead and pick that. So where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us with an Ascendancy that very easily has access to defenses, but you're going to have to think a little bit harder when it comes to damage. The +3 vol skills is another thing you could heavily lean into, even on this build. You could go Impure Blood, Hewn Flesh, and then both of these and drop Glimpse of Chaos, because you would lose out about on 2,000 energy shield, which is a big deal in some ways, but it's also not that big of a deal. If we lose Glimpse of Chaos on this build, that is Google. If we lose Glimpse of Chaos on this build, we still have 5,000 energy shield, which is very respectable, right? Considering the level the character would be at. And we don't have any problem at all capping res, and then we get +3 level of all vol skills. So you could still play this sort of archetype as vol skills. Yeah, so that's kind of the summary of... Oh, no, I should talk about uniques. So first of all, I mentioned Sprigleaf. This is very good if you are replacing mana costs with life costs. Another super strong unique is Cloud of the Inward Eye. And this is because that 80% life and 80% increased energy, 120% energy shield is going to be converted into damage by Cloud of the Inward Eye's transfiguration of the body, soul, and mind. So you get some value there. The other powerful unique that we really need to talk about is there's their gloves. I don't remember. I think it's they're Valkyra's gloves. Valkyras, there we go. So these gloves. These gloves are going to give you +5 to level of all socketed vol skill gems. Any damage skill. So if you're planning on turning this into a Blade Vortex build, for example, these gloves are amazing, and I'll just go ahead and show why. So let's just look at the default Blade Vortex damage. It's not going to be all that high. We're gonna put conversion in the build really quickly, just so we can show some elemental scaling. This is a very inefficient way of doing conversion, but I'm just doing this to really quickly demonstrate how powerful this could be, and then we'll just convert. So we have 80% conversion now. So let's run. You would also normally in a 4-link run Unleash support on Blade Vortex. And then our last gem can be damage. So let's just run. Sure, let's just throw in. You probably wouldn't run Elemental Focus on this, but we'll just throw in Elemental Focus before we can. So you see our Blade hit DPS is 6,700, right? And if we just theoretically put this to a 6-link. Once again, this isn't the most efficient 6-link. I haven't spec damage nodes on the tree. This isn't the most efficient way of building Blade Vortex, blah, 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 blah. I just want to show you the ratio of difference between this 13,000 damage for being in a 6-link, and let's change this to Vol Blade Vortex. still only show the blade vortex damage. So I've gone down to a 4-link, 6,000 damage, and then we're going to socket these in our gloves instead. So now we're up to 9,000 damage. So this set of gloves for the build is going to be a little bit weaker than having a 6-link, but it's not by a lot. So if these gloves are cheap on League Start, you can pick up these gloves and run any skill that has a vol tag in them. And even if you don't plan on using the vol version of the skill, which you probably should use the vol version of the skill, right? You are, what's the word I'm looking for? Even if you still benefit from the plus level vol skill gems. So, and then of course this is going to stack with the +3 level to all vol skill gems. I'll really quickly put that in the build, and I'm going to add, where are you? +3 to level of all vol skill gems. You can see that Ascendency is going to give you roughly 30% increased damage. So it's very powerful with these gloves. Pick them up early if you're planning on using the vol skill gem version of starting this build. But either way, you're going to switch to Ivory Tower later on. And that's going to do two things. First of all, it's going to allow chaos damage to be taken to mana before life. One thing that's nice about that is we currently in this build are using mana for nothing. Like literally, I just have a Arcane Cloak thrown in here because the mana pool is not being used to cast spells. It's not being used for reservation. It's just sitting there. So using it to mitigate chaos damage is a pretty good idea. And potentially if you invest a little bit into mana and then you reforge your rings with damage taken recouped as mana, you could drop the corsating elixir, and that would free up at least another flash slot and allow you to run a different timeless jewel if you wanted to. That's just an option you have for scaling it. So I think it's a pretty cool archetype. I'm not exactly sure it's going to be meta. I think to make this like an actual meta skill, you need to seal Battle Mage from the Inquisitor, and you need to, using a Forbidden Flesh and Forbidden Flame, and you need to turn it into a Strength Stacker. And that's not a, let's just say that's not budget friendly is the kindest way of saying that. That would be something more like a second or third build that someone goes into. So I need to get out more videos because I said I would talk about every Ascendancy, and so far I've only done 2, so I've got some catching up to do, and I will see you all later.